7.5 million. So who is he? And is he getting young men to swing left? Tony O'Sullivan went and talked to him, and he is out front.
Tony O'Sullivan.
This is Hasan Piker.
This is my dog, Kaya. I thought you legitimately were going to work out.
I could do some weights.
He's a social media superstar with almost 3
You're on TV?
million followers on the video streaming platform Twitch.
They're eating the pets. So
I can't watch the rest of this. This shit
To the latest-
All right, let's get to the fucking tariffs, dude.
On President-elect Trump, he is blasting Mexico and Canada over their handling of the border and promising to punish them with high tariffs on day one of his administration. He's also vowing to raise tariffs on China. Our senior White House correspondent, Selena Wang, is at Mar-a-Lago with the latest. Good morning, Selena.
Good morning, Michael. President-elect Trump is threatening.
Do you think your FBI agent is your fan? You would be shocked with the places in which there are HasanAbi heads. Every day, someone reaches out and tells me something that I truly find to be insane. Okay? It is some real, I'm not even kidding. This is some real Tyler Durden Fight Club shit. It is wild. I'm talking like Department of Homeland Security. How the f did that happen? I'm talking, I mean, look at the, yeah, someone said, I know a Department of Homeland Security guy who loves you. Yeah. There are people in, there are obviously people that were prominently inside of the DNC that we found out. I was shocked by that. I think post DNC, I'm no longer shocked as much. But sometimes someone will tell me something and I'm like, that's insane. Like a person that I shit on quite frequently that, you know, I don't want to reveal anything, but there are a lot of people who I regularly shit on and their staffers or people that work under them are, you know, constantly watching me.
To impose tariffs on America's top 3 trading partners. This would massively disrupt businesses and supply chains. It could also dramatically increase the costs of everything from cars, clothes to oil.
Kamala is a HasanAbi head? No, but I mean, Kamala's campaign was, yeah. They were the ones who wanted me to go to the DNC against the DNC's wishes. Let me tell you, it wasn't Jamie Harrison's side of the DNC that wanted me there.
This morning, Donald Trump is warning America's neighbors, threatening to implement 25% of...
I got my whole team at NASA to love you. Get my brother a job, please. I want him to work there before they fucking wipe it out entirely. NASA doesn't pay much? Brother, what the do you mean? You think Marat gives a about the money? Are you kidding me? First of all, let me tell you something, okay? Aerospace engineers don't make as much as you think they would be making. I promise you. It is actually shocking. How bad that shit is. And there are plenty of people who probably work in the defense sector and also is specifically as like aerospace and mechanical engineers in this chat that will tell you, yes, like shit that you would assume is like 300K. Like you'd probably be like, oh yeah, this is like a top of the line experienced engineer. They should be making like 300,000, you know? Like think about that. That is like one of the, like you have to get a higher degree. You have to, yeah, no, they get paid like, if they're lucky, they get paid like 100 grand mid-career. Yeah, their starting salaries, depending on where they are, they usually are relegated to. So they have to live in like some dog shit state in some dog shit fucking area because the states like have, you know, either favorable tax credits that they've given, favorable tax benefits they've given to the company, or they also have like no workers protection whatsoever. And it's very hard to unionize there. So they set up these like low cost facilities. Land is cheaper too. And then they're like, yeah, you're at a low cost facility. You're in a state that is like nobody wants to live in. So yeah, of course, we're going to pay you 60 grand. Shut the up as a starting salary. Yeah. See, I got 55K out of college in Arkansas with an engineering degree. Yeah. Engineers, 100K is a low salary. Are you out of your mind? Brother, for someone who's like, you know, half a decade into their career, almost a decade into their career, as a fucking rocket scientist, what are you talking about? Like, you know how people say, it's not, watch your manners? Shut the up. What do you mean, watch your manners? Oh, God damn. Where the do you think you're at? Anyway, you know how people say, it's not rocket science? The reason why people say that is because rocket science is hard. Okay? And the expectation from normal people is that, when someone is doing rocket science, that they're probably going to be paid a lot more than the average person. Anyway,
across the board tariffs on.
Let's get to tariffs, dude. I'm done talking about this shit.
To the latest on President-elect Trump, he is blasting Mexico and Canada over their handling of the border and promising to punish them with high tariffs on day one of his administration. He's also vowing to raise tariffs on China. Our senior White House correspondent, Selena Wang, is at Mar-a-Lago with the latest. Good morning, Selena.
Good morning, Michael. President-elect Trump is threatening to impose tariffs on America's top 3 trading partners. This would massively disrupt businesses and supply chains. It could also dramatically increase the costs of everything from cars, clothes to oil.
This morning, Donald Trump is warning America's neighbors, threatening to implement 25% across-the-board tariffs on Mexico and Canada on day one if both countries, he says, don't crack down on their borders with the U.S. Trump cites a new caravan coming from Mexico with a group of hundreds of migrants, mostly from South and Central America, leaving southern Mexico last week. This Ecuadorian migrant says, "We want to be on the other side before the new president of the United States takes office," as he seems quite harsh on immigrants. The president-elect blames Mexico and Canada, saying his tariffs will remain in effect until such times as drugs, in particular fentanyl, and all illegal aliens stop this invasion of our country. Mexico in particular is America's largest trading partner, with the U.S. buying near $500 billion of Mexican goods.
I love this story so much because it is Don, baby. It's called JD Don. Permanent first world genocide, okay? He's bringing it in. He's saying no more treats for you Amerifats. Every Ameroid, billions must be removed from the treacherous nature of treats. Okay, it's true. Is JD Pondon? Is JD Pondon? Okay, he's saying permanent first world genocide. He's saying it's over. It's done. No more treats, and I respect him for it. Okay, no more treats for you, Amerifat. The directorate is clear. The dictatorship of the proletariat will rise. No more treats. You like Cheez-Its? You're going to die, okay? No more Cheez-Its.
Goods like computers, cars, and electrical equipment. Tariffs could greatly impact U.S. industries, with some experts warning that Americans could face higher prices on gas, cars, and food, just as inflation has been.
He said it's done, okay? He said Americans are no longer going to get treats. I don't want them to get treats. And also on top of that, that the most important industry for Trump supporters is what? Drop shipping and Trump merchandise. He wants to gut this industry, okay? He wants to destroy these two key sectors. He despises his fan base, okay? He's saying, "Oh, I'm sorry. Do you have a Trump store? It's over. I'm gonna explode it." He said, "No more drop shipping and no more Trump merchandise."
Proceeding, Mexican authorities have broken up past caravans, with many more disbanding on their own. But Trump's incoming.
Oh yeah, by the way, this is the other thing I called. A lot of people were wondering, like, Hasan, why the f is Trump doing this trade tariff shit? And I told you it's going to be to win favors. That's it. It's that, and also to maybe in the future gut what remains of the income tax.
Border czar Tom Homan is now warning those migrants they will soon face harsher policies like family separation.
We got to enforce immigration law, or we're never going to fix the border, and it leads to a big national security vulnerability to this nation.
Later today, Homan will meet with Texas's Republican Governor Greg Abbott as he prepares for his sweeping crackdown. If enacted, these tariffs could violate the terms of the trade agreement between the U.S., Mexico, and Canada.
That he signed, by the way. He didn't have to too, and then now is saying fuck that.
Canada, which Trump signed into law during his first term. Trump also accused China of sending drugs pouring into our country, threatening an additional 10% tariff on all Chinese products too. Tariffs are a favorite tool of Trump's.
To me, the most beautiful word in the dictionary is tariff, and it's my favorite word.
Trump's comments drawing responses from trade partners. The Chinese embassy saying economic and trade cooperation is essentially mutually beneficial. no one will win in a trade war or a tariff war. And Canada responding, saying they'll continue to discuss these issues with the incoming administration.
Trump used tariffs as a negotiating tactic during his first term, so he's reusing that playbook again. But if he actually follows through on his campaign vow for higher tariffs, some economists estimate that could cost the average U.S. household more than $2,600 a year. George?
It could really drive inflation. Okay, Selena, thanks very much.
CNN's Rosa Flores is in Houston for us now. Rosa, how is Mexico responding to what we're hearing from the incoming Trump administration about how they plan to crack down on the border and carry out these mass deportations?
Well, very sternly. As a matter of fact, Mexico's president held a press conference this morning in response to President-elect Donald Trump's threat to impose tariffs on Mexico, actually. But Jim, as you know, all of these things are intermingled. Mexico's president was very firm. She called out President-elect Donald Trump, saying that both Mexico and the United States collaborate on a lot of different levels, including economically. And in other words, she said that she's ready to respond in kind. Let me read to you a portion of that letter that she sent to President-elect Donald Trump. She said, quote, "President Trump, neither threats nor tariffs will solve the issue of migration or drug consumption in the United States. Cooperation and shared understandings are required to face these important challenges. Imposing one tariff would mean another comes in response." I'm going to read that one more time because these are very important words from Mexico's president. Imposing one tariff would mean another comes in response, continuing like this until we put shared companies at risk. Now, the tone of this letter is very important because Mexico's president is not just talking about
my goat, Claudia. Conservative Reddit claims this is a Trump negotiation tactic that is in the Art of the Deal book, and that he's hitting with the highest possible deal for them to squirm and take action, and he will lower the tariffs once they do. Who's gonna take action? Tariffs are not a cost that the Chinese government has to pay. And there are certain raw materials, for example, that companies need. There is a lot of shit that is not either refined here, or there's a lot of shit that isn't just here. So, like, what are you going to do? You can't materialize things that don't exist within the boundaries of the United States of America. If the streamlined process for a lot of these raw materials are already within the supply chain coming from these countries that you're hitting them with tariffs, and we have no competitive manufacturing industry, then what are you supposed to do? Sometimes we do have like tomatoes, avocados, things like that, bananas, you know what I mean? With bananas, there's not really a substitute, but like tomatoes and avocados, you can make it here. Right? You do make it here, right? You grow them here, but not by the numbers necessary. So what are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do? We get it from Mexico. What are you supposed to do? Trump is doing degrowth, dude. That's what he's doing. Like, people are still, what's going to end up happening is people are still going to keep, importing this stuff, and then they're going to pay the tariffs, and then they're going to carry on the cost of the consumer. That's it. So the prices are going to go up because now the production costs have gone up. It's that simple. Like, people understand this when they talk about labor. Oh, when the wages go up, well, then the cost of the cost of production is going to go up. No company is going to eat the fucking profit margins. Okay, they're just not going to do that. This is a way for Donald Trump to. I don't think he's going to do like full blown tariffs. I think he's just going to tariff key sectors, and then and then use that as a mechanism to bring in more alliances from industry leaders to be like, I will tariff your business in the fucking ground unless you play ball. Companies need to be able to eat the upfront cost, though. Okay, if companies were going to eat the upfront cost, why don't they do that for fucking wage increases rather than fucking putting tariffs on random shit that then goes in the pockets of the American government so they can fucking not, fix the potholes and instead give it to Israel? The fuck? Force the companies to eat the profits, eat into their profit margins, and increase wages then.
Tariffs about the economic relationship with the. So the border relationship with the United States, because Mexico has done a lot to help the Biden administration control the migration that is coming into the U.S. southern border, which begs the question about what is happening on the U.S. southern border, given that Governor Greg Abbott and the incoming U.S. border czar, Tom Homan, are on the border today. Here's the reality. The migrant apprehension numbers are extremely low. I talked to a law enforcement source, Jim, who says that on Sunday, migrant apprehensions were about 1,500. If you compare that to December of 2023, when 10,000 people were crossing the border per day, that just gives you a sense of the dramatic change. The reality is, and I've talked to both people on the ground, agents, and also advocates who work on the border, they say it is very quiet right now, very low, despite what you're hearing from Governor Greg Abbott and the incoming border czar, Tom Homan. Back to you.
All right, Rosa Flores, important context. Thank you very much.
What do Americans want in terms of what were their top priorities for Trump? This is according to CBS News YouGov poll that came out. Their highest priority is lower prices. 79% of Americans want lower prices. Just 26% say put tariffs on imports. So his strategy here can undercut what voters want him to do.
Sure, but this, threatening tariffs.
Dear President-elect Donald Trump, I'm writing to you regarding your statement on Monday, November 25th, concerning migration, fentanyl trafficking, and tariffs. You may not be aware that Mexico has developed a comprehensive policy to assist migrants from different parts of the world who would cross our territory en route to the southern border of the United States. As a result, and according to data from your country's Customs and Border Protection, encounters at the Mexico-United States borders have decreased 75% between December 2023 and November 2024. Moreover, half of those who arrive do so through a legally scheduled appointment under the United States CBP-1 program. For these reasons, migrant caravans no longer arrive at the border. Even so, it is clear that we must work together to create a new labor mobility model that is necessary for your country, as well as address the root causes that compel families to leave their homes out of necessity. If even a small percentage of what the United States allocates to war were instead dedicated to building peace and fostering development, it would address the underlying causes of human mobility. On another note, and for humanitarian reasons, Mexico has consistently expressed its willingness to help prevent the fentanyl epidemic in the United States from continuing. This is, after all, a public health consumption problem within your society. Yeah, she's saying, like, you Americans are fat fentanyl addicts, and it's not our fault. You have created the market for fentanyl. So far this year, Mexican armed forces and prosecutors have seized tons of various types of drugs, 10,000 firearms, and detained 15,000 individuals for violence related to drug trafficking. Furthermore, the Mexican Congress is in the process of approving a constitutional reform to classify the production, distribution, and commercialization of fentanyl and other synthetic drugs as a serious crime without bail. However, it is publicly known that the chemical precursors used to produce this and other synthetic drugs are illegally entering Canada, the United States, and Mexico from Asian countries. This underscores the urgent need for international collaboration. You must also be aware of the illegal trafficking of firearms into my country from the United States. Again, also correct. It's also, ironically enough, Americans that traffic the fentanyl and chemical compounds necessary for fentanyl through regular points of entry for an American market. And then Americans also trade guns for said fentanyl and chemical compounds. So the drug trade is directly vibrant as a consequence of ridiculous American policies. America is so gun crazy that they also have similar problems with Canada too. 70% of the illegal weapons seized from criminals in Mexico come from your country. We do not produce these weapons, nor do we consume synthetic drugs. Tragically, it is in our country that lives are lost to the violence resulting from meeting the drug demand in yours. Am I on CNN now? Are they finally covering my story on CNN? Let's watch. Not yet. It's out front. I just saw you on CNN. Oh, wait. I guess we missed it then, because it's Aaron Burnett out front right now. I'm up next. Okay. Hopefully I'll be able to finish this in time. President Trump, migration and drug consumption in the United States cannot be addressed through threats or tariffs. What is needed is cooperation and mutual understanding to tackle these significant challenges. For every tariff, there will be a response in kind until we put at risk our shared enterprises. Yes, shared. For instance, among Mexico's main exporters of the United States are General Motors, Stellantis, and Ford Motor Company, which arrived in Mexico 80 years ago. Why impose a tariff that would jeopardize them? Such a measure would be unacceptable and would lead to inflation and job losses in both the United States and Mexico. I am convinced that North America's economic strength lies in maintaining our trade partnership. This allows us to remain competitive amongst other economic blocs. For this reason, I believe that the dialogue is the best path to understanding, peace, and prosperity for our nations. I hope our teams can meet soon to continue building joint resolutions. So that part is also correct. And not only is that part correct, but also one of the funniest things that happened in this process was Canada also was like, what the hell's going on? Except their response was, why the fuck would you ever say we're Mexican? To compare the U.S. to Mexico is the most insulting thing I've ever heard from Canada's closest ally. Premier Ford tells reporters at Queen's Park. Says Canada will have to retaliate if tariffs go through. We have to tighten up our borders on both sides, Ford says, adding there are illegals entering Canada from the U.S. too. This is no way to treat your closest ally, but says there's a problem at the border that needs to be addressed. Ford says Ontario is preparing a strong commercial in the U.S. that promotes Canada's relationship with the U.S., calls tariffs a shock, but says problems need to be addressed. USA, we're going to crush your economy. Canada, did you just call me a Mexican? That's amazing. Also, last but not least, okay, here's the average American and their understanding of tariffs.
Do these liberals not understand that this is the point? Like, this is the goal. Walmart CFO signals that price hikes may be coming because of Donald Trump's tariffs. Yeah, we fully expect price hikes on foreign products.
You fucking idiot. 45% of all trade is conducted with China, Mexico, and Canada. Okay, 45. That touches every product. Okay, that touches every fucking product. You absolute dumbass. People think, I guess no more Chinese food or whatever the fuck, but like they don't understand that there are raw materials that are necessary for American production that are being manufactured or are coming in from these countries. Lumber, for example. Oh my God.
Because we will only be applying tariffs to foreign products. Look, Aaron, I recognize you probably have no fucking idea how tariffs work. So let me tell you how this is going to happen. We're going to put tariffs on the foreign products that Walmart brings in, which will raise the cost of the foreign products and allow the American companies to compete with them to actually be able to compete on price, thereby incentivizing people to buy American, which would lead to that American company being able to lower their prices because they're finally getting volume. Therefore, what you have is foreign products, which are...
Oh, that's how it's going to work. Oh, American manufacturing is going to become cheaper. I didn't realize that that's how it was going to work. Famously, when there is a stable amount of demand, but the supply all of a sudden is wiped out in half, what ends up happening is, famously, companies actually lower their prices and not increase their prices. They only increase their prices when Joe Biden is president. Thank you. No, that's how it works.
Because they're finally getting volume. Therefore, what you have is foreign products, which are going to be significantly more expensive.
Still
and you
not
have
live on
American
CNN.
products where the company is able to lower their price because they're able to sell in volume. But yeah, if you want to continue to buy...
I think I'm up next on CNN, maybe?
That may be in the works. Let's see. That's going to blow up some heads. So, we'll see.
All right, this comes as Democrats right now are pinning their hopes tonight on this man, Hasan Piker, the left's biggest influencer. In fact, 7.5 million people tuned into his live stream on election night. 7.5 million. So who is he? And is he getting young men to swing left? Tony O'Sullivan went and talked to him, and he is out front.
Tony O'Sullivan.
This is Hasan Piker.
This is my dog, Kaya. I thought you legitimately were going to work out.
I could do some weights.
He's a social media superstar with almost
You're
3
on
million
TV.
followers on the video streaming platform Twitch.
They're eating the pets.
So this is that whole masculinity thing people are talking about, huh?
And he's part of a growing group of streamers and podcasters reaching young men online, a space Trump tapped into to reach young male voters.
Punch in, then you won't be able to see that he's not doing any weights.
But Hasan is not a Trump supporter. He's a progressive, a fan of Bernie and AOC. The Democratic Party even invited him to the DNC in August.
One thing we've been hearing for weeks now is that the left needs a Joe Rogan.
Yeah. I don't think that the Democratic Party can podcast itself out of this issue. Joe Rogan, he endorsed Bernie Sanders in 2020. Maybe they should do an autopsy on why he left the party.
Yeah, I've heard you say when it comes to stuff that
guys like. You know, you seek that stuff out online, whether it's watching a streamer, whether it's watching guys talking about working out and fitness. You say that the right wing just dominates.
Look how
that
tall
space.
she is.
Yeah.
Why?
On TV.
Well, I think that's why I started on Twitch, right? I know for a fact that the video game space is like people who consume this culture, people who are a part of this culture, are not all right wing. I wanted to showcase to people that, like, no, you can be a progressive person, you can be a leftist, and like have fun at the same time.
How many people were watching your live stream on election night?
The total unique number was 7.5 million.
There's a general sense that when it comes to the world of podcasts, alternative media, I don't even know what you want to call it, that Trump did a much better job with that than Democrats and Harris.
Absolutely. I think that's true. When I saw the Aiden Ross collab, I thought, this doesn't have emotion. It was awkward, it was weird. But then I saw Trump on Theo Vaughn, and he started talking about cocaine. And I was like, uh-oh, this humanizes him.
Cocaine so you're way up with cocaine more than anything else you can think of.
Cocaine will turn you into a damn owl, homie. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Harris did consider going on Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
But she didn't. What is it that the Democrat Party has to do differently?
Well, I think that they need to change their policies.
It's a policy thing.
Yes, it's 100% a policy thing. Which is the boring answer. Although it would be very self-serving for me to say, I'm the left's Joe Rogan, the Democratic Party should give me millions of dollars. That's not going to solve this problem. What will solve this problem is if the Democratic Party actually adopts real left-wing economic populist messaging instead of purposefully avoiding that stuff because they're terrified of upsetting their corporate donors. I think Trump speaks to mail insecurities better, and I think Trump speaks to the anger that people have, whereas the other side of the political spectrum does not speak to that anger at all.
There's been a lot of controversy around you.
Yes.
The way you talk about Israel is viewed by some as anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
Are you anti-Semitic?
Of course not. The real problem here is that I'm an anti-Zionist. The real problem here is that I'm extremely critical of Israel and all of the information that's readily available, especially on social media for so many people that don't necessarily rely on mainstream media any longer to get their information. And that's why you see this generational gap. If you're over the age of 35, you're still, you're like, no, Israel's the most moral democracy in the Middle East, maybe in the world, right? Like, and I think that the major generational divide that is, I think, in a very damaging way, feeding into the mistrust overall that people have with mainstream news in general, is coming from that.
Joni O'Sullivan, CNN, Los Angeles.
Yeah, it was so thoughtful and important to hear that. Ken Martin is out front. He is running to be the next chair of the DNC. He's the current chairman of the Minnesota Democratic Farmer Labor Party. And I really appreciate your time, Ken. So, you hear Hasan Piker. 7.5 million people watched him on an election night. He's all in as a Democrat. But then he's talking to Joni about how the video game and fitness space online is dominated by right-wing people talking about it, right? Not necessarily everyone into fitness, right? That there's that gap. And he says that Trump speaks to male insecurities better. He speaks to the anger that people have, and that Democrats don't speak to that anger at all. I'm quoting Hasan here. He's very direct about the problem. Do you agree with him?
Well, first off, Aaron, thanks for having me on tonight. And actually, I think Hasan's right in most of what he says there, and particularly as it relates to the fact that the Republicans have been, since the 2020 election, a constant drumbeat of misinformation, disinformation, and lies on platforms that the Democratic Party really wasn't competing in. We live in a 24/7, 365-day information environment now that we have to be competing in a much better way. Podcasts, streaming services, TikTok, social media, of course. My two boys, 22 and 20, they get their information from TikTok, right? And so we have to start realizing that we have to be where the voters are. That's half the battle, of course.
Okay,
and
no, he's missing the point. I didn't say just be at the podcast.
Others who are already trusted validators and messengers in these spaces to help push these messages out and to have conversations with voters and people who are feeling frustrated and angry and left behind.
That's not what I said.
When we send people into these spaces, it tends to be politicians.
It's the opposite of what I said.
People like Hasan have deep influence and certainly have a voice and a following.
So, there has been a lot of focus, and he sort of touches on that because he's talking about the dominance of right-wing voices in very male spaces like video games or fitness. And there has been, though, broadly speaking, Ken, so much focus right now, and as you're looking to run the DNC, this is at the center of it.
I said you're not going to podcast your way out of this problem.
Aggressively away from certain social positions like DEI, right? Or from issues where Democrats certainly seem to be in this election and certainly were successfully branded as much to the left of American voters. For example, Kamala Harris's support of taxpayer-funded surgeries, transgender surgeries for illegal migrants. The heads of the Trump and Harris campaigns see the impact of that issue, of that now famous ad, very differently.
That's crazy.
I wanted to play each of them for you.
Oh, my God.
We targeted black men, Hispanic families.
Oh, my God, I'm dying.
White families, suburban women. We ran that ad everywhere because
they
it also got to the
did
point
not
about boys and girls locker rooms.
They're like, no, we have to find a Joe Rogan to the left and give him $1 million. That's the point. That's what we got to do.
Most ruthlessly effective.
I don't know how else I can communicate this point like openly.
This trans ad was not driving vote. There's a belief that if only we had responded to this trans ad with national and huge battleground state ads, we would have won. I don't think that's true.
So, Ken, how do you see it? One of the most ruthlessly effective negative ads in all of history, or this trans ad was not driving the vote, even if they'd responded to it more effectively, they wouldn't have won. Which point of view is right?
Well, I don't know which point of view is right. What I do know is we don't have to abandon our values here. We can stand up for the oppressed and marginalized and people who are being pushed out of this conversation, while also at the same time centering this conversation around people's economic pain and their frustrations with what was happening in this country these last several years. It's not about left or right to me. It's about making sure we focus squarely on a working class agenda that centers the struggles of this multiracial, multi-generational working class that is feeling left behind, that's working harder than they ever have before, that's struggling to get ahead and feeling like no one gives a damn about their lives. At the end of the day, that's the thing that unites all parts of our broad coalition in the Democratic Party, and we need to focus back on basics here, right? But at the same time, we do not need to abandon our values. We will stand up and protect and fight for people who are being pushed out of this conversation in this country and bullied and attacked like we see in Congress right now.
All right. Well, I really appreciate your time. Ken Martin, as I said, chairman of the Minnesota Democratic Farmer Labor Party. And I know, sir, you are running to run the DNC. And that decision for the Democratic Party is going to be crucial. So much is at stake. So thank you for your time. And you mentioned what's going on in Congress. Well, that comes down to this. The Republican Congresswoman Nancy Mace now leading the charge when it comes to attacking transgender women. But wait until you see what she used to say about the trans community. This gives About Face a whole new name. K-File has the tapes. Plus, Harry Enton with what?
Okay. CNN watches you on mute just like chat. Yeah, I mean, the recovery was better from the guy. The recovery was better. Yeah, Aaron Burnett posted me on CNN. It's crazy.
Here.
There are some Minnesotans that say they don't like Ken Martin in the chat immediately.
The Democratic Party is to focus on, again, getting back to a working class agenda that centers the struggles of everyday Americans who, to your point about inflation, were clearly worried about not getting ahead, that they were just getting by, and no one was their champion. No one seemed to care about them. The path forward here for the Democratic.
I think that was good overall. I think that the message, you know, the fact that I'm able to even say this message on CNN is a shift in the attitude, is a market shift, I think. At least they weren't outright attacking you. No, like, I think that, I don't know, dude. You've probably been asked a million times, but what's your thoughts on the DSA? It's great. You gave him a layup and still fumbled, though. Donnie O'Sullivan didn't work out. No, he did. He actually did work out. They really diluted your Israel critique. Don't know what you said, but it seemed clipped. Yeah, they cut it short for time constraints. It's not. I don't think they were like silencing me or anything like that. FM Masochist, thank you for the 50 gifted subs. The thing is, like, that interview was like an hour and a half long. But what is this? From the river to the sea is a chant used by extremists to support the destruction of Israel is appalling to embrace. Yeah, it's fine, dude. It's every Democrat is this way. They shouldn't be, but. So glad they didn't clip anything out of context. No, they wouldn't do that. They Like, Donnie would not do that, chat. Come on. Overall, I think like talking about the trans stuff this much is so silly. I don't know. I just think it's so counterproductive. Like, the media is not, liberal media in general is not as much in the tank for the Democratic Party as everyone thinks they are. They do oftentimes have a tendency to push on reactionary buttons. But having said that, I think that the Democratic Party should be messaging on the trans issue a lot better by just being like, this is a deflection, this is a distraction, this is not actually going to help. This is not actually going to help people fix the prices, you know? It's very stupid. Anyway, the primary people who will benefit from the tariffs are real estate investors, which is Trump's primary thing. So, no. The people that will benefit from Trump's tariffs regime is going to be people that are... What? Kamala Harris has a message for you?
I just have to remind you, don't you ever let anybody take your power from you. You have the same power.
What the fuck is this?
That you did before November 5th. And you have the same purpose that you did.
Bro, this is a wild clip. Is she drunk? What's happening? Mamala's off the perk, dude. Goddamn.
And you have the same ability to engage and inspire. Don't ever let anybody or any circumstance take your power from you.
Democratic Party be like, we need $30 extra million right now. Here's an inspiring message from Mamala. You need to make videos like this, bro. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think like I think tariffs are not going to be as universal as the way people think they are, and I think they're simply going to be a way for Donald Trump to win favors with key industry leaders, to just like bring them to his side. So here's the thing. This is something that Erdogan did as well. Like, this is something that happens in other countries. Not so much in America, because like America is so capitalist that there's not like a need to rock the boat too much and like offer too much power to like to an administration. But like in Turkey, the incoming administration brings their own wealthy class with them, and it's a line of defense. That's what Erdogan did. He brought forth directly his family members and also people that were invested in his continued leadership, and he made them incredibly wealthy. This is a part of how kleptocracies work. Vladimir Putin did this in Russia, and Erdogan did this in Turkey. Okay, Turkey. I think that this is what Donald Trump is trying to do.
Before we get into tariffs,
not to get all libbed up on this, but like I think this is basically what Trump is going to try to do. He's going to be like, listen, you're a billionaire. You own a newspaper, right? Yeltsin did it, not Putin. Okay, I'm just saying like Putin utilized the existing structure of the oligarchs to his advantage in the same way. And I think that is what Trump is going to try and do. And it's actually a little bit unique to the regular order of business in America, because corporations run the country rather than the country runs the government runs the corporations. And I think Trump will basically implement a tariffs regime on those he has declared enemies of his administration in an effort to centralize power even further. And you know, this is a fantastic approach to moving towards more and more authoritarian mechanisms of control.
The heart of the Donald Trump economic plan.
We should talk about the chicken war.
The chicken war is a clucking good story.
In post-World War II West Germany, people started eating a lot of chicken, specifically American chicken. Midway through 1962, U.S. farmers were on track to sell more than $50 million worth, $500 million in today's money. This made European farmers mad, so the organization that later became the European Union put a tariff on chicken. A 5-pound chicken that started as $1.60 became $2.25. Imports quickly dropped. U.S. chicken farmers and politicians were furious.
And we thought Germany's our big market for chicken, and so if we hurt the Germans, maybe we'll get them to change their mind on chicken.
So the U.S. put a 25% tariff on trucks, like Germany's Volkswagen. And it worked. Their truck sales in the U.S.
It's interesting that Wall Street Journal, a right-wing publisher, goes ahead shitting on tariffs. Brother, tariffs were the first reason why Carl Icahn left the Trump administration last time, when he implemented tariffs on steel. Carl Icahn was like, what the fuck are you doing? You're like ruining key sectors of the economy. And he did. He truly disrupted a lot of different parts of the American economy this way. So yeah, there's a reason why Wall Street Journal and damn near every economist is going to fucking be aggro on this shit. The only problem is in this process, like I'm not even anti-tariff in general. I am simply anti-tariff when it comes to just unconditional across-the-board tariffs with no acceptable domestic manufacturing substitute. That's why you're not going to get. That's why you're not going to get liberal institutions that are still, you know, right-wing conservative, but like pro-capitalist to be on board with tariffs in general.
Fell by half, and they never really recovered. Meanwhile, Germans paid more for their chicken, and Americans had fewer truck options.
Like one of the things that I'm incredibly annoyed by with like Toyota Hilux tariffs, for example, like the Japanese competitive car manufacturing industry, is that I hate that there is no acceptable small substitute, like small truck with the same cab size substitute in America. Then it's a lose-lose for everybody, right? Like I understand the importance of American manufacturing. I really do, especially when it comes to vehicle manufacturing. The issue, on the other hand, is that due to CAFE standards, like all of our domestic car manufacturers have realized that, you know, you can have these behemoth vehicles that are larger and larger, that are basically child mutilators. And there is no end in sight for, there's no change in that. Not to change the subject, but people are very upset for you not getting in the tub of your goal weight of 225. I don't know what you're talking about. No one is upset.
It's kind of a perfect example of what tariffs do. Hurt consumers while protecting very specific industries, or attempt to get countries to change their behavior. While they haven't been a large part of trade policy in decades, former President Donald Trump wants to change that.
Some might say it's economic nationalism. I call it common sense. I call it America first.
President Trump has really sort of brought a lot of people out to think that tariffs might be something that's useful in America's economic arsenal in a way that hasn't been used in the past.
Here's how tariffs work and what Trump's proposals would do. Let's start in 2018, when President Trump put tariffs on
washing machines. We're going to benefit our consumers, and we're going to create a lot of jobs.
Since then, whenever a washing machine is imported to the U.S., the company on the U.S. side doing the importing pays a tariff to the U.S. government.
Their margins are pretty low. They've got to pass that price on to consumers who ultimately pay it. That's the whole point, in some sense, to reduce demand for those goods and create space for domestic producers.
After the tariffs, not only did the price of imported washing machines go up, so did the ones made in the U.S.
There's this myth out there that if we...
Wait a minute, but this guy said, hold on, but this dumbass said that it wouldn't happen, that it would be cheaper. So I'm confused. Wait a minute. What? Wait a minute. What are you saying?
Tax imports, domestic producers won't change their prices. And that's not the case. You're creating more demand for them.
So naturally, the price goes up. And it wasn't just washers. Dryers went up in price too, even though they weren't part of the tariffs.
Usually it's the case, if you buy a washer, you buy a dryer. So even though dryers weren't directly affected by the tariff.
What? It seems like corporations, no matter whatever the restrictions are, will always increase prices. I'm so... Man, what? Murat? Ne yapıyorsun? Niye kapıyı açık bıraktın?
They were indirectly affected by the...
Now, it wasn't all bad. These tariffs did
create a lot of jobs.
About 1,800, mostly from those foreign companies like Samsung and LG opening plants in the U.S. And a study found the U.S. collected $82 million annually. But because of those price increases, it cost consumers $1.5 billion more. So they basically paid $815,000 per job.
This is a...
Nah, that sounds sick. Aren't you a socialist? This should be good. Oh my God. Brother, there's problems here with this argument that even Wall Street Journal recognizes, and I'm shocked that you don't, which is there needs to be, one, a competitive domestic manufacturing capability, and two, a restriction on increasing prices in order to make up for the additional costs that now importers are carrying on to the consumer. If those two things don't happen, then you're fucked. Tariffs just operate as a regressive tax, a sales tax, a flat sales tax. Tariffs equals socialism. Trump isn't doing economic protectionism. So nationalization is the best thing to do. I mean, I didn't even say that, but I do believe that. Yes, I think that nationalization would be significantly better for a lot of sectors. Yes.
Very expensive.
Starting with our energy extraction industry, for sure.
Expensive job creation program. And so that's another reason why economists don't like tariffs. They're much more cost-effective, more efficient ways of increasing employment in those industries.
These weren't the only tariffs Trump created in 2018. The big ones were on
steel and aluminum.
Those are really designed to...
Costs will always be passed on. Prices will not be reduced when import competitors are figuratively eliminated from the marketplace. Why would a company offer a cheaper price when they own the market? Yeah, that's why I'm saying without actual price restrictions implemented by the federal government in any capacity, all this will do is raise prices regardless. Especially if you're doing broad sweeping tariffs. Like this is just one good being imported. Okay, it's one good being imported, and even then, it still has this kind of impact.
Punish China for its transgressions of international trade rules.
Also for national security. They're used to make a lot of military equipment, but also everyday things like cars.
All the industries that use steel have to pay the higher price. That squeezes their profit margins, and it also puts them at a competitive disadvantage against foreign producers of those same goods who don't have to pay those inflated costs for their inputs. And so a lot of studies have shown that you lose jobs, as many, if not more jobs in those downstream industries as you gain in the upstream industries that are being protected by the tariffs.
Many studies on the 2018 tariffs found some pros, some cons. Manufacturing jobs, which were on the decline, didn't increase, but they did level out. The overall economy lost jobs, mostly in those downstream industries, and the costs of the tariffs were passed on to U.S. companies and consumers. So, not great for the economy, but it did motivate U.S.
I imagine you'll still live comfortably even if the prices come up. Yeah, except it doesn't matter because I'm not a selfish fucking asshole. Do you not understand? Literally every single thing that I advocate for does not impact me. I'm not a trans person, but I advocate for trans rights. Okay? I'm not an undocumented immigrant, but I believe that we have to have a more just and equitable process for people that are migrating into the country. What the fuck? I have the capacity to not only have empathy, but beyond that, even in a self-serving manner, understand that if we actually fix some of these underlying material inequalities, then America will thrive, okay? Then America can lead, America can match its potential as the wealthiest nation on the fucking planet. That's it. That's it. That's the whole point.
U.S. companies to move out of China and made supply chains more resilient. But it didn't change much of China's behavior, and in many ways they became more aggressive. But here's the thing. Even with all the economic downsides, a review by the Biden administration suggested Trump's tariffs should remain, and the administration should add or increase them, which they did.
Once tariffs get in place, there are two factors that sort of keep them in place for some time. First of all, there are going to be domestic interest groups that have a stake in seeing those tariffs maintained because they like the extra market share that they've gained as a result of those tariffs. And second of all, tariffs are a bargaining chip. So why would we sort of unilaterally get rid of these, even if there's some economic benefits, when we might use it in some negotiations down the road?
Tariffs are really hard to remove. It's why, 60 years later, there's still a 25% tariff on trucks, even though U.S. chicken farmers no longer care about selling in Europe.
So we're still living with the legacy of the chicken war. So that's sort of another lesson of history, is you have to be careful about imposing these tariffs because you think you're doing it for short-term strategic reasons or you're just helping out this industry temporarily, but they can last for decade upon decade upon decade.
Tariff policy is kind of old. Even by the chicken war, they were only imposed on around 7% of U.S. imports. Trump's plan for a second term is to bring them back dramatically.
This is the policy that built this country, and this is the...
Yeah, also, there's no point. There's never been a point in American history, as far as I know, and maybe I'm wrong, someone can correct me on this, where tariffs have been implemented across the board on 40% of all trade. 45, to be exact. China, Canada, and Mexico make up 45% of all trade in the United States. But can't tariffs also weaken international rivals if America trades with its allies instead of the same stuff, even without domestic manufacturing? Dude, this is literally to fucking cut off your nose to spite your face, okay? You're just describing that as a successful policy. You're also talking about Canada and Mexico as international rivals. These are two of America's most important trade partners. What are you saying? Do you hear the words that are coming out of your mouth? Do you just type shit into the abyss and hit enter without thinking?
The policy that will save our country.
He's proposing a 60% tariff on everything from China and a 10 or even 20% on every import from every other country.
Countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world.
Multiple independent studies looked at the possible.
Yeah, he means like, dude, I'm only listening to JD Pandon. When he says this, I'm thinking about it as like retaliatory. He's saying that the countries will finally pay us back for all the war and the death and the destruction and the unequal exchange that we have implemented as we have relegated the global south into servile status. As we have routinely kept them down, they are coming back and they will fight back hard and they will destroy our treats economy. That's what he's saying. I swear, he's like, they're going to pay us all back. Do you think this is just a way of disingenuously introducing a massively regressive tax? Yes, I do think that. And I also think that he will utilize this. I don't think he will do it across the board. I don't think he's doing this across the board anyway. He's claiming to do it across the board. I'd be shocked if he did it. I think he's doing it to bring American corporate owners, like industry leaders, to heel, to come and kiss the ring, I think.
Effects. One found it would cost the average American household $1,700 from higher prices. Another found it could cost more than 684,000 jobs. And they don't factor in how domestic goods might get more expensive, or retaliatory tariffs from other countries.
They're not going to take this lying down. They're not going to change their behavior in some way to appease the administration that imposes such tariffs.
The dutiable tariff rate peak of 1932 is 59.1%, second only to the 61.7% rate of 1830. Okay, so the last time was 100 years ago, where we did not have the same logistical international supply chains that we had created that we now desperately rely on. That's crazy. Yeah. Another key problem there, of course, is this is pre-globalization and during the Great Depression. This is totally nutty.
They're going to retaliate. So not only will U.S. imports shrink, but U.S. exports will shrink as well.
Trump wants to use these tariffs as a revenue stream for the U.S. to pay for tax cuts.
As tariffs on foreign countries go up, taxes on American workers and families come down.
Studies found his proposal would likely bring in around $250 billion per year, about 5% of what the federal government currently brings in with taxes. So if tariffs are harmful, always harmful even to the economy, why is Trump so focused on them? In the last 20 years, China
The answer is because he's a fucking psycho. Okay, let's
has
see.
gotten aggressive, investing in manufacturing to become the world's largest exporter. Even today, they invest more than any other country. It has let them export things like steel and aluminum at below market values. That, coupled with numerous trade rule violations.
It's funny to say this as like in an ominous way. China's become the industrial powerhouse of the world, but it's bad. It's unfair and bad. Wow, it turns out centralized planning is impossible to compete against, and the American centralized planning that has no long-term goals in mind and is basically just a money faucet for corporations that will give nothing back to the American public in return is probably not a very good idea. You cannot compete with a nation state that has 10-year, 20-year, 30-year plans set in motion and has the power to execute them because, and I repeat this all the time, America, the American government, works at the behest of corporations. In China, the corporations work at the behest of the government.
allowed President Trump to restart the whole discussion about using tariffs to achieve certain objectives, such as punishing other countries, and the Biden administration has just continued that. So the whole environment has...
Like, we have always tried to positively incentivize our producers by utilizing subsidies, okay, to keep prices in order. That is the maximum amount of centralization that happens in America. Corporations, on the other hand, can just take those subsidies and reframe it in a way that it still benefits shareholder value rather than the actual stakeholders, such as the workers that work at these corporations. And we demand nothing in return. Like, the American government demands nothing in return. They can do buybacks. They can do whatever the fuck they want. We've deregulated every aspect of the American economy. And then we're just like, oh, this is shocking. How the fuck? Why aren't things working in the way that we want them to? China doesn't operate that way. This is how complex manufacturing even a bottle of root beer is. Ingredients: molasses from the United States, anise from Spain, licorice from France, vanilla bourbon from Madagascar, cinnamon from Sri Lanka, cloves from Indonesia, wintergreen from China, pimento berry oil from Jamaican balsam oil from Peru. Now imagine a computer or a F-150 pickup truck. Yep. Most parts of it are also... The raw materials are coming from all around the planet. Most parts are assembled in Mexico and then assembled once again in the United States of America. But like, so many of the key components are coming from China. What do?
Has really changed from...
Yeah. If you want, you act as China is a good example to follow. Actually, true though, China steals our military equipment, bro. First of all, I'm not saying that. You know who's saying that? This graph. You know who's saying that? The Wall Street Journal, okay? It's not me saying it. Like, I'm just simply repeating facts, okay? Now, they might not favor your understanding of the world. They might not favor what you want the world to be, okay? Why did I just open Insta to your balls? First of all, it wasn't my balls. It was my shaft, okay? And secondly, that wasn't supposed to be the main part of the photo. The photo was to show gains, not the meat gains that I've made over the years, but instead the gains I've made over the years on my body fat percentage and musculature. Nice shaft, dude. Thanks. This is skewed, though. The main reason is that they lump all potential companies as state-owned in China. This is quite expansive as a definition. This is used all the time to say China isn't being fair. I'm an economist studying China for what it's worth. Yeah, of course it's not fair. It's not fair because centralized planning is more effective than the decentralized, subsidy-backed way that we do economic planning in this country. That's why it's not fair. That's why the European Union will come out and be like, the Chinese electric vehicles are going to wipe out our entire automotive industry unless we literally fucking add tariffs to the Chinese-made EVs, because they're literally a fraction of the cost of all of the European cars that we are manufacturing, and they're competitive. It's not fair. Their products are too good, and their price points are too low. Every instance of trade war and foreign policy revolving around China from the Western world is literally, how did we let it get this way? How do we allow China to become the bad bitch? This is fucked up. We must do something about it. You understand? That's literally all of the conversation. Everyone constantly goes, dude, what the fuck? We thought we could use them as slave labor in perpetuity. We didn't realize that our capital owners moving manufacturing to China was going to end up devastating our countries. That's what it is. We didn't realize that they wouldn't operate like India, for example. That we didn't realize that they would actually have a longer term plan in mind with the way that they used foreign capital to engage in even development. This was unacceptable. We thought this entire time that we could just keep using and abusing the Chinese labor force. What the fuck? People always talk about how, the Chinese manufacturing is stealing our IP. It's like, brother, you think that the companies didn't know that? It's a part of the process. They were like, yeah, you stupid Chinese will never be able to actually fucking steal our ingenious IP. You will never be able to make competitive products. That was the idea. Once they actually started making competitive products and even better products, actually, they went, oh my God, what the fuck's going on? Oh shit, we can't do anything about it because we're too reliant on Chinese manufacturing. One second you're talking about Chinese industrial central planning policy. The next you're talking about your cock and balls. I love this stream. Yeah. Joint venture tech transfer, 100% voluntary. The only involuntary part of that is that, like, China is now a superpower and America and the Western world fucking hates that. That's the problem. Thanks. You want the... Yeah, I know. I wonder why people don't use this as an example of central planning beating free markets. What do you mean? They don't want to use that because they're capitalists. No one would want this. None of the powerful entities that control the Western governments would ever allow this to happen. This would mean we have to just, we have to change. We have to turn into a non-capitalist country, or at least one that is dictated by governments instead. According to a study by the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, China has taken a leading position in 37 out of the 44 critical and emerging technology areas. These areas include defense, space, robotics, energy, biotechnology, artificial intelligence, advanced materials, and quantum technology.
Values. That, coupled with numerous trade rule violations,
allowed President Trump to really restart the whole discussion about using tariffs to achieve certain objectives, such as punishing other countries, and the Biden administration has just continued that. So the whole environment has really changed from 20 years ago, when trade policy was pretty quiet business, and now we're talking about industrial policy, tariffs, subsidies, and all these different interventions.
What do you think capitals would do if China's only going to continue to dominate? They're doing it already. It's called fascism, okay? That's what they're going to do. That's it.
Interventions, because the whole global and geopolitical environment has changed quite dramatically.
Change even more dramatically with Trump's proposed tariff plan. In the short run, we know the economy will suffer. In the long,
I think one of the best examples you can use in your immediate life is TikTok. China fucking comes in and makes this insane product that is insanely addictive, okay? Insanely addictive. But once it reaches mass consumption and everybody loves it and everyone's addicted to it, it becomes more politically consequential to ban it, okay? America's like, oh, I like this product. You should be forced to divest from this product that is very successful. You should sell this to an American capitalist instead. Okay? That's it. And China's like, no, I'm not going to do that. America's a tiny part of the, TikTok marketplace. It's fine. We're not going to do that. Instead, we're just going to lobby the American government in the same way that any other corporation does. And we're going to activate all the fucking people that love TikTok to go and call their congresspersons. Once you got a sweet taste of that liquid crack cocaine, of that internet crack, it's too hard. It's too hard to take it away.
Run, no one really knows. Will it be a war between the US and the rest of the world, or the Western world against China? Trump wants to play a game of chicken to find out.
No, Hasan, stop spreading fake propaganda. China's dirt poor, I swear. We're a third world country. We're all eating rats like North Koreans, I promise. Yeah. EU wants technology transfer from China, EV tech. EU to demand technology transfers from Chinese companies. Huawei's Mate 70 now doesn't use American technology and is as good, if not better, than Apple. This didn't have to happen. Trump and Biden gave up America's technology power and led by stupidly sanctioning Huawei in China. What did they expect? That China would roll over like Japan did in the 80s? We've had generations of arrogant, myopic, and stupid people running DC. Trump and Biden for shot into own goal. China for 3 from half court. This is why, God forbid, you say anything like even remotely normal about China. Okay? People get very mad. Oh, speaking of which, by the way, BDS works. Puma no longer sponsors the Israel Football Association. In a highly unusual move in December 2023, Puma leaked news to the Financial Times that it would not be renewing its contract with the IFA, set to expire at the end of December 2024. Kit providers don't announce that they won't be renewing a contract, let alone a year in advance. Puma was no longer able to sustain the growing pressure and wanted out, clearly illustrating the impact of the campaign to boycott Puma. We thank the many groups around the world that work tirelessly and relentlessly to force Puma to end its complicity with Israel's apartheid regime and its Gaza genocide. Yeah. I'm headed to Huawei Mate's 70 launch event in Shenzhen. Yes, Shenzhen Metro has business class. This phone chip, this OS event is a really big deal for Chinese tech and has big implications for U.S.-China relations. In May 2019, the U.S. Department of Commerce added Huawei and its affiliates to the Entity List, which restricts U.S. companies and allies from exporting tech to Huawei. They expected this to cripple Huawei because it wouldn't be able to acquire any semiconductors made with U.S. tech. The U.S. government assumed that by restricting Huawei's access to cutting-edge semiconductor manufacturing equipment, particularly extreme ultraviolet lithography machines from ASML, the company would be unable to produce cutting-edge chips at the process nodes smaller than 10 nm. EUV lithography is crucial for efficiently manufacturing chips at 7 nm and below, utilizing light with a wavelength of 13. I don't know what the fuck any of this shit means. It's nanometers, right? They're saying that you can't just like make these tiny ass chips. Then on the morning of August 30th, Huawei quietly dropped the new flagship phone, the Mate 60 Pro. No product release event, no specs, nothing. At first, no one even knew if the phone had 5G because of all the US sanctions that cut Huawei off from advanced tech. A friend of that morning showed up in the lobby of my office with a new phone. We call it 4.99G, he said with a wink. We speed tested it at the 5G phones in our office, and it beat all of them. Huawei wasn't supposed to have a 5G chip. The timing of the drop was significant. U.S. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo was in China that morning. The tech world waited a few days for the first teardowns to see what was inside. It caught everyone off guard, especially the U.S., because they thought Huawei couldn't even get close to this without the EUV tech. It turned out that Huawei had secretly been pouring tons of R&D for years into designing domestic chips. The chip's performance showed that Huawei and SMIC had overcome the technical limitations previously thought insurmountable with older DUV tech. The only remaining thread tying Huawei's phone to Western technology was that it ran on Android. That changes today. I don't know why Americans just like close their eyes and plug their ears to what is happening. Huawei's based their 5G tech on a scientific paper by Turkish scientist Erdal Arıkan. Nice. This is the same principle behind the sanctions regime, okay? If you sanction half the fucking planet, 60% of the poorest nations on the planet, then you are inevitably pushing people into creating a secondary market outside of those sanctions. The more people you sanction, the more allies the previously sanctioned countries have. If you sanction every country, for example, then you're not sanctioning anybody else. You're just sanctioning yourself. America has consistently, in their endless hubris, dominated the entire planet, thinking that the rest of the world would never catch up, that they would be consistently servile to the interests and the needs of the American marketplace. The reality of the matter is, this is why the One Belt, One Road initiative was so devastating. China wanted to develop Africa not exclusively because they wanted to extract raw minerals and rare earth metals and whatnot in a more efficient capacity. They also wanted to create a second market that would consume the products that they're developing, knowing full well that inevitably America will close off the consumption faucet, even if it hurts themselves in the process. It's not because like China wants to uplift the global south or whatever, and they're socialist or anything like that. They just wanted new customers, and that's what's going on. These are the types of moves that you can initiate if you have complete control over your economy and have the nice save. They don't want manufacturing to happen in Africa. No, they want Africa to be a second market of consumption. These are the types of things you can do if you control the entire economy, and that you are able to do whatever the fuck you want. Trump is facing a losing tariff war with China
it's
2
official.
weeks ago.
Donald Trump has been elected president of the United States.
Donald Trump's first presidency gave...
And also have no respect for human rights, so no limitations. Yeah, that's fucking bullshit, okay? The idea that, like, it's an exclusively Chinese thing to not have any respect for human rights is hilarious when we are living in the United States of America, and our Supreme Court recently ruled that American manufacturers on the global stage could utilize child slave labor, okay, as long as it's relegated to third-party subcontractors. It's ridiculous. No, everybody fucking has no respect for human rights, China included, okay? And in terms of numbers on the board, America is, you know, historically speaking, far worse. So, and still continues to do insanely awful shit. We love talking. I mean, this is the same dynamic. We love talking about like mismanagement and famine due to genuinely devastating consequences that people in positions of power have implemented in like transitional socialist states. Okay, and we're like, oh, communism killed 7 quintillion, okay, 20 gorillion, omega billion people. And then we just look at the global capitalist marketplace where there is an abundance of food. There's a surplus of food. We throw food out, and that curing famine at the global level is simply a logistical problem. It's simply a problem born out of capitalism, and yet we do not contend with those deaths as deaths caused by capitalism. 14 million a year due to famine every year. But that's because people have not picked themselves up by their fucking bootstraps. Prior transitional socialist states have implemented methods and have failed and have caused widespread famine and massive amounts of deaths. This is true. But in this day and age, that is no longer a problem. And yet, while we have the capacity to feed everyone, the profit motive makes it so that we do not do that. I say one is more evil on its face than the other, if you want to use good-bad dynamics.
Washington a playbook of hardline tactics for preventing China from overtaking the U.S. as the world's dominant economic and technological power.
Trump introduced punitive tariffs on China, as well as trying to rebalance the trade deficit to try and contain China's economic rise, as well as trying to contain its military might.
To me, the most beautiful word in the dictionary is tariff.
Trump is focused on raising tariffs to prevent China from shipping many of their goods into the United States that perhaps are subsidized by the government.
And his campaign for re-election left no doubt that his ambition for American supremacy was still his North Star.
We will hire American, buy American, build American, grow American, and show the whole world that the American dream is back.
But after 4 years out of the Oval Office, Trump is returning to face an emboldened, savvier China, and one the U.S. may already be losing its battle to contain. Tackling that is likely to be one of Trump's primary plot lines in the sequel to his first 4-year showdown with China.
Thank you very much.
Let's rewind for a second. When China joined the World Trade Organization in 2001, it marked a new era in global economics. Lower trade barriers allowed China to ship cheap toys, t-shirts, and TVs around the globe, and an export bonanza that helped lift hundreds of millions of Chinese into the middle class. Then around here, 2 pivotal events occurred.
I am officially running for President of the United States.
And that same year, China officially revealed a 10-year plan to upgrade its thriving export economy with cutting-edge innovations.
Made in China 2025 is essentially President Xi Jinping's vision to secure China's place in the world as a preeminent global technological leader. At its heart, it's really about ensuring that China's national security goals are at the heart of its policy making.
It's the kind of grand ambition that would galvanize successive U.S. presidents into taking action.
This is number one, but this is the first of many.
The U.S. efforts to contain China's growth began with tariffs and some of the trade policies in the Trump administration.
Basically, they sought to make it more expensive for Chinese companies to sell to the U.S. and consequently redress a massive trade deficit, the imbalance that occurs when a nation imports more from a country than it exports to it.
President Biden is holding back on a decision to scrap any Trump-era tariffs on China imports.
You can see this has had an impact. In 2023, the deficit shrank to the smallest total since 2010, reflecting a decline in imports shipped from China. But globally, China's productive prowess is at historic heights. Its manufactured goods trade surplus is the largest relative to global GDP of any country since the US right after World War II. Trump also introduced policies to control high-tech exports from U.S. manufacturers, as well as those of some allied economies, which were tightened by the Biden administration.
So that essentially makes it impossible or much harder to transfer U.S. goods or U.S. technologies into China.
The U.S. government stopped Huawei from being able to sell much of its telecom equipment into the United States, and then it went even a step further. It went to many of its allies around the world and tried to persuade them also to not let Huawei sell its equipment into their countries. That caused all sorts of problems for them. In 2022, they constrained China's ability to get the most advanced semiconductors out there, including AI chips that would be used to train models like ChatGPT. They also constrained the country's ability to get chip-making equipment, including the machines that make the most advanced.
Yeah, they literally went to the Netherlands, were like, you cannot work with fucking China.
Advanced chips that drive smartphones and also AI and quantum computing.
Massive appliances like these extreme ultraviolet lithography machines developed by Dutch company ASML. The constraints are also intended to hinder China's tech giants from developing anything that could threaten America's military superiority, a concern long intertwined with Washington's economic strategy.
In terms of semiconductors and these really sensitive technologies, China is still lagging behind the US. So we have seen some efficacy there.
But the data shows US-led export controls had an unintended side effect. They forced China to become more self-reliant and invest in its own
Yeah, unintended side effect? No shit, dude. Wait a minute. Why won't these guys just stop developing? What? Why won't they stop developing? I don't understand. Please stop. Please stop. Please. Stop, please. Excuse me. It would be nice if you stopped developing, please. Self-reliance, the best policy against American imperialism. That's right, baby. That's right. You know what I'm saying? Self-reliance is the best fucking policy. That's right. That's why Jusha will thrive one day. We will make sure that you all say you love Israel and that they can do whatever they want and you love America and that we should bomb Mexico. It will be illegal to not say these things. It will be illegal to basically turn around and say, like, maybe we shouldn't bomb Mexico. They're a valuable trade partner. No, you're going to prison. Something funny about consumer rights and corporations in China compared to the US is that when consumers have complaints in China, it's taken extremely seriously, like with Tesla. And in America, the companies lobby the FTC to make sure you can't click one button to cancel the predatory monthly subscription draining from your bank account. They will come to your house and kill you if you even say that that's bad, that you shouldn't be able to, that you should be able to click to cancel your subscriptions. You will go to jail. Or better yet, here, we have a solution to that problem. It's called Another App. Here, purchase with a $10 a month subscription, we will have this new surveillance technology that has access to all your passwords. Go in and cancel these subscriptions for you. How about that? That's called innovation, baby. That's called free. With a $500 per year subscription, you can give us your information and we will remove the virus we put on your computer. Yeah. It's cool, man. I don't know what you guys are complaining about. It's the best. America #1, okay? China not even #2, okay? China maybe like #5. Oh, that's amazing. Can we please talk about the conservatime mind for a second? What? This kid disappeared off the face of the planet after shooting Donald Trump? That's what happens when people die. Anyway. Made in China 2025, an industrial policy plan announced by Xi Jinping in 2015 has largely been a success. China has achieved global leadership position in 5 key technology categories and is catching fast in many others. It's also really annoying because it's like while they're doing that shit, okay, we're doing this shit, okay? They're doing that shit over there. This is what we're fucking predisposed with.
We'll do it for them. But you can stay, you can not help, but don't impede us and do not knowingly harbor and conceal an illegal alien from ICE, because that is a felony. And we got one hell of an attorney general coming in, Pam Bondi. I think she'll read that statute the same way I do it. I'm not a lawyer, but I can read. And we're going to have consequences for people who violate the law and try to prevent us from doing our job.
I do love Tom Homan because, like, he is melting in real time, okay? He is the perfect definition of, like, a non-human. Like, he is straightforwardly fucking melting in front of our eyes. He's like, fucking slurs. I can read, I promise you, Laura. A homunculus, yes. It's amazing. Yeah, he did this live. Yeah. He said, if you knowingly shelter an undocumented immigrant, we got our best noses, okay? We got our best guys for the job. They will find them. They will find the undocumented migrants and they will make you suffer the consequences too. Yeah, we'll sniff them out. I'm going to tweet that. This is a good tweet. Let me tweet. Do people get the reference? What, from an incredibly famous movie? I think people will understand the reference. That's a bingo. Yeah. Anyway, this is I get the reference just by what he's wearing. Yeah, you can pretty much figure out what's going on here, you know? Oh no, that's anti-Semitic, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, making a direct comparison to a famous representation of a fucking Nazi who hunted Jewish people is actually really anti-Semitic. Yeah, it's only after the 6 millionth migrant that is killed in one of the concentration work camps because the American government decided it's actually infinitely cheaper to just start melting the undocumented migrants that are not completely enslaved at gunpoint. Only then can you make this comparison. There's no other reason to make this comparison. There's no reason to learn about history, as a matter of fact, because why could you learn? If you learn about history, then you start noticing the very clear similarities between, you know, former bad countries and this current country that I am conditioned into thinking is a good country. Anyway, let's get back to China.
Scientists and researchers.
They've been very aggressive in applying for patents that they think are going to help them develop domestic industries that are critical to their future.
When President Xi Jinping makes something a priority in China, he can point to banks to provide cheap financing, he can point to state-owned enterprises to throw their full weight behind backing.
Like, what do people think? Dude. What the fuck do people think, like, Nazi Germany's argument was? Did they think that Nazi Germany didn't also do a steady bit of dehumanizing propaganda to make Jewish people, to make the Volkish Germans think that all Jews were terrorists? They did. Like, we're running the same cycle. It wasn't like they woke up one day and were like, yes, we are evil. Yeah, we love doing evil. We know we are evil and we love doing it. It's our favorite thing is to be evil. That is why we're doing it. Like, no, people were fed a healthy diet of propaganda leading up to this moment. Okay? My suitcase. That's what the Germans said. Mein lolly. Which is why whenever I show like translated Hitler speeches is like identical to like current American and current Israeli speeches from key figures in both of these governments, you know?
That certain sector or industry.
For instance, backers of companies like Shanghai Microelectronics Equipment considered China's best bet for competing with ASML's advanced lithography machines.
At this point, I think everybody believes that they're many years away from being able to match ASML at the pinnacle of the industry, but they're pouring billions and billions of dollars into this effort, and they're very determined to be able to close the gap as much as they possibly can.
Evidence that China's semiconductor ecosystem was expanding emerged in 2023 when Huawei released the Mate 60, or more precisely, when Bloomberg News commissioned a research firm to take one apart.
Inside that phone was a semiconductor that was much more powerful than anybody thought China could make on its own.
It suggested instead of being 8 or 10 years behind the US, actually China was 4 to 5 years behind the US. But the cross-application is what really, we can do this with a consumer product like a phone. It's just as easy to do this with much more sensitive technology that's used for military applications. In other areas, China really has charged ahead to take a lead.
Take a look at this chart. You can see China's market share of many high-tech exports growing, particularly EVs, despite US tariffs and restrictions on access to technology.
Ultimately, there is this idea that trade always gets through. And that's sort of what we see when we think about the EV industry in China. So, for example, a big EV automaker like BYD, it's already getting around some of these potential restrictions by building factories in places like Thailand, in Hungary, and in Brazil.
Trump wants to further limit imports of Chinese EVs and batteries, and in his second term may try to fulfill a popular campaign pledge to protect US car makers.
I will impose whatever tariffs are required, 100%,
You ain't never getting a
200%.
BYD car. The only time you get a BYD car is if you go to Mexico or if you go to Canada and ride the bus, okay? That's it. If you are living in the United States of America, you are not getting a BYD car anytime soon. Not today, not tomorrow, not yesterday. I'm sorry, sucks to suck. It ain't happening, okay?
100%, 1,000%. They're not going to sell one car into
I mean, I wanted to, but like
the United States.
The concern in
No, Canada doesn't have BYD either. No, they do. They have it for bus fleets, I'm pretty sure. That's why I said they only have it. Yeah, unless you're fucking Ford CEO Jim Farley, which I think some of that is fake. I don't think he like only drives a BYD car exclusively, but I think he did go to China and saw BYD and was like, "Holy fuck, we're cooked."
in Washington is that the electric
soon BYD also coming to Turkey as well, by the way.
Vehicles and some of the
and yeah, it's not BYD. He owns a Xiaomi car, the Ford CEO.
The software behind them would be.
And no, you can't get a BYD car. You can't. It's not just the tariffs. They're not street legal, I'm pretty sure, in America. You can buy them in Mexico, though.
Be able to collect personal information and perhaps share it with the Chinese government, or at least with the companies that are involved in making those vehicles.
It's the kind of rhetoric Beijing has vehemently rejected.
Bruh!
China will continue to firmly safeguard legitimate rights and interests of its enterprises. And we resolutely support the Chinese companies in maintaining their rights in accordance with the law.
So, have two U.S. administrations hindered China in ways Trump initially intended? It doesn't appear so.
The vast majority of Made in China 2025 targets that Bloomberg tracks actually have been achieved or are on track to be achieved.
Tariffs have helped cut America's trade deficit with its rival. But, as we saw earlier, they haven't prevented China from boosting exports elsewhere. And while the US may have slowed Beijing's progress in some areas, like advanced chip making, overall, Xi Jinping's industrial policies are successfully advancing China's tech.
I don't understand. When I look at like economy broadcasters, they have a very different take on what's going on in China and the Chinese economy than all of my favorite YouTube channels that keep telling me that China is on the verge of collapse yesterday. Why is it that Foreign Policy magazine or Bloomberg or Wall Street Journal has a noticeably different approach to what is happening with the Chinese economy and Chinese global dominance, as a matter of fact, than every one of my favorite fucking YouTubers that have millions and millions of views? I don't get it.
Technological capabilities. But even if the US hasn't managed to trip China yet, nobody expects a second Trump administration to stop trying.
If you look at the geopolitical...
Doesn't not letting Chinese EVs into the US harm consumers? Yes, but it doesn't even fucking matter. As long as we have a competitive EV industry, I don't even care, okay? Yes, I like Chinese EVs. I wish I could get one. But the reality of the matter is, as long as we had like good competitive domestic manufacturing, I would be happy, especially if the fucking laborers were paid well. The problem is we don't get that, and we don't get the Chinese EVs. It sucks. We have fucking Tesla. It sucks dick. As far as I understand, people didn't even express interest in the Ford F-150, which I'm thinking about getting, the Lightning. Marat really, really wants me to get the F-150 Lightning. I want the F-100 Illuminator, and I am willing to suck off Jim Farley to do it, okay? I want it. I want it bad. I want the Illuminator. I want the fucking F-100 Concept, the EV one. And I will give Jim Farley the good suck. Please don't buy the huge kid killer. It's cool. Some kids have bad vibes. You know what I'm talking about. The F-100, I've shown you this before many times over. The problem is it's a concept. They only sell the battery package, which is like fucking $400,000 or some shit. Look at how beautiful this is. It is everything that I want. The only problem is it's a two-seater. Sorry, a three-seater. Find a good custom shop. You'll pay dearly for it, but they'll build it. If I was going to get a fucking custom EV, I would probably get a Bronco. They have Bronco Resto Mazda EV packages already. It's not even a problem. And they're probably a little bit more reliable. What? Respectfully, that's one of the ugliest vehicles I've ever seen. You guys are so insane. Have you... They're saying... Okay, chat is conflicted on this. Okay, look at this.
Enjoying a rainy day with an inflatable blow-up bed in your car.
I will say that the Chinese EVs and Chinese cars in general do have a lot of bloat. Like, I don't really give a fuck about a lot of the amenities. They max out some of the craziest shit.
In a random forest or someone's garden by the look of it. Oh, it's nice, though. Open all sunshades. 2 of them? Take my money.
No, I'm not doing car content.
So you can take the headrest off. Well, I think a lot of cars can do that. Oh, hold up. Oh, well, this just got a little bit saucy. What are we doing that for, then? That looks like a very convenient angle. A little T. Oh, haha. What are we laughing at? I'm just... So that inflatable bed, does that come with the car? And then you can blind all the window. Oh, my God, I'd have the best nap of my life. A little bit of Netflix on if you've got a screen in the car. Oh, I can see one. Tesla, eat your heart out. I'd love a Tesla, I'll be honest. Open the rear entertainment for... There's another screen. Take my money. And what are they watching? Anime.
Imagine the back shots. Jesus Christ.
Well, but you know what? This is... If I'm gonna leave this world, I wouldn't mind it being in this position with a dog.
Yeah, I know. It's stupid. I'm not like a... I'm not crazy for all the extra shit that the Chinese cars have.
Landscape, I think it's clear that the United States will continue to apply pressure on their ally for more restriction.
How this sequel to Trump's first confrontation with China will play out is yet to be written. But if you listen to Trump, it's clear that keeping America on top is his ultimate goal.
We can do things that nobody else can do. China doesn't have what we have. Nobody has what we have.
Yeah. No, definitely. Definitely.